Have you ever wondered why, when you play pendulums, you can only summon one pendulum monster from your extra deck unless you have link monsters specifically pointing to other zones that you can summon them into? For those that actually played Pendulum, I know Pendulum's not exactly the most popular of the I guess extra summoning mechanics or any summoning mechanics in Yu-Gi-Oh, but I'm sure you guys have seen people talk about Pendulum, or you've played Pendulum yourself, or you've seen it on the tournament streams, and the thoughts probably crossed your mind if you're a bit of a newer Yu-Gi-Oh player, maybe came in during Duel Links, or maybe came in Master Duel specifically, and that stems from Master Rule 4. So if you don't know what a master rule is, very quickly we'll go over it. Master rules are basically what determine the kind of inner workings of the Yu-Gi-Oh card game. So for example, one of the earliest master rules that was implemented, put the whole, your main deck has to be 40 to 60 cards. Your extra deck, has to be 15 cards. It's no longer called the fusion deck. It's now called the extra deck. So all of those mechanical aspects of Yu-Gi-Oh, the inner workings of it, are changed during a master rule. So back in the day, for example, ignition effects, an ignition effect being you summon the monster, then you activate the monster's effect. Those effects were basically quick effects on summon. You know how Alistair searches invocation as soon as he's summoned? Pretty much every effect worked that way until a master rule came in and changed it and said, no, there has to be a difference between all these rules. Now, Master Rule 4 is an interesting master rule. It came out around, it officially came out, I believe it came out like in like talks and stuff like that before Duel Links, but officially it came out around the time Duel Links happened. The anime Vrains is what Duel Links was kind of based off of, so it all kind of worked together, if you will. And I remember that's when I was getting back into Yu-Gi-Oh, and I remember seeing a lot of hate for the link summoning mechanic, specifically because what it did to the extra deck. I do know that during that era, like YCSs had like the highest attending rate and stuff like that, so I doubt like a lot of people quit compared to like the Pendulum era, like Master Rule 3, but it was pretty crazy what happened. So the biggest rule change for Master Rule, other than the Pendulum arrows being shifted down to the Spell Trap Zone, which honestly, whatever. The biggest change was that in order to summon extra deck monsters, they added the 2 extra monster zones here. You could only summon 1 extra deck monster to those extra deck zones. And if you wanted to summon more, you had to summon to a zone that a link monster pointed to. So if you did not play any links, you only played like a fusion deck, for example, that means you could only fuse 1 fusion monster, and that's it. Your other zones cannot be used for fusion, for synchro, for XCs. You couldn't do any of that. You were just locked into that 1 monster. So basically, this forced because at this point, Yu-Gi-Oh is completely about the extra deck, right? It was all about the extra deck summoning mechanics. So basically, if you wanted to play any deck, you had to run link monsters. So before you started comboing off for your synchro plays, you had to bring out a link monster or 2 that would be able to open up zones for your synchro monsters to go into. If you wanted to summon multiple fusion monsters, multiple exceed monsters, you had to have link monsters that would point to the zones to open them up so you could summon to those zones through your extra deck. Now, naturally, people didn't like this, especially because when links first came out, they weren't as powerful as they were now, right? Like Nightmare Unicorn, for example, is a great link 3 that actually does something. Back in the day, people just kind of used generic link monsters just for their link arrows to open up zones so they could just play their deck. So cards that were good link monsters that were good and naturally fit into decks that were meta at the time, just naturally were better. And it's interesting because I remember a large part of the Yugi tubing community, because again, I was getting back into something Yu-Gi-Oh! Fierce, and I was interested in what the hell a Link Summon even was. A lot of people kept kind of repeating the same thing. Link monsters are coming to slow down the game, because at the time, Yu-Gi-Oh! Was all about Synchro, Exceed, Synchro, and just crazy boards, and you're using up half your deck and all this stuff. And a lot of people thought, oh, this is going to slow down the game. In reality, it kind of made it even faster than it was. The decks that could use the Link summons that were actually good just got so much better than the decks that couldn't, because they were just sitting there using generic Links just to use the arrows to open up said zones. So it was an interesting thing to kind of watch happen. A lot of people just didn't like it. I'm pretty sure it's probably the format most people quit outside of Pendulums, making it kind of the second most quitted format, if you will. And a lot of people even say that, you know, Konami themselves, especially with Master Rule 5 coming out, kind of were scared of what they did with Master Rule 4, and they kind of ran it back, if you will. If I had to guess, it's probably closer to Konami wanted to release these Link monsters but didn't know how powerful to make them. So they made them kind of closer to the weaker side, and instead of just banning a whole bunch of extra deck monsters, they just said you had to use these Link mechanics so people could actually... people actually did the Link summoning mechanic, kind of like in Duel Links, where we would get an Exceed mechanic or a Synchro mechanic, but it was always extremely weak in the beginning and just no one used it because there's no reason to. I fully believe that it's probably more likely that they just wanted people to use Link summons. They wanted to promote Link summons and sell Link summons, and this was kind of the best way to do it. And then over time, from what I understand, it got better because the Link monsters got better. But let's be honest, do you really want to play a game where you're forced to, you know, your Synchro deck that wants to Synchro 20 times in a row, like Infernoble Knight video that I made that literally uses like 13 of its extra deck Synchro monsters on turn 1? Do you really think a deck like that wants to play Link monsters when it's already limited in what it could do? The fun aspect of Yu-Gi-Oh! I feel was kind of sapped out of it in favor of these Link monsters, so Konami could, you know, I guess maybe try, you know, balance the game, maybe just sell more cards. I think it's probably that. I don't think balance really had to do anything with it, especially since it didn't really balance the game. It made it feel more imbalanced than it really was. So yeah, there's the story of Master Rule 4. That is why Master Rule 5 changed it, so you can, the original summoning mechanics, you know, you could do whatever you want. Pendulums are still stuck. Pendulums are still stuck with the ruling from the extra deck zone. They cannot, you cannot summon multiple pendulums unless you have a Link monster zone. You guys tell me, do you think that's fair? Do you think pendulums should just be able to summon from the extra deck free, or do you think that them getting locked down is kind of the way to go? Right now, pendulums, they don't do anything, unfortunately, in kind of like the Master Duel meta, if you will. They're not a meta deck. You do see them top from time to time, but they don't really do anything too crazy. So maybe a change like that could help them out, you know, here kind of in the near future. I don't know. You guys let me know what you think. If you want me to talk about other Master Rules or other major changes to the game, I have done a lot of research because I played, I have gone back and played a lot of formats, you know, GOAT format, Teledad format, stuff like that with my friends and stuff, just so I can learn more about Yu-Gi-Oh! So yeah, if you want me to tell you about older formats, let me know down in the comments down below. Let me know if you played in Master Rule 4, if it was really as bad as people say, or was it just overblown. Until the next video, boys, take it easy.